Hey guys, I want you to hear this from me before you start listening to this episode because this one is a little bit different than the normal chicken fried women, the stories that make us kind of podcast. So if you have not listened to part 1 of my sit down with Dave Barnes, go back and listen to it. Not that you necessarily need to. This isn't like some gripping part 2 drama, but the first one is just so great. And what this one is essentially, it is 2 people who love to hear themselves talk and think that the world would also love to hear them talk. And am I wrong? Wrong. Abe and I got into a discussion about the SNL 50th anniversary show, and we couldn't shut up about it, and we agreed with everything. Anyway, long story short, we are now BFFs, okay? And he calls me every 5 minutes. It's crazy. Go listen to the second episode that I'm sending to you right now. It's all our love about Saturday Night Live, and you're going to love it too. And who wouldn't? It's me and Dave. Here we go. I wanted to ask you this.
Oh my gosh.
Did you see it?
Did I see it?
50th?
Come on.
Okay, you saw the 50th reunion.
My gosh. I have a lot of thoughts about this. I don't know
okay,
how much time
I'd like
you
to
want to spend on
explore
it,
them just quickly. I want to know.
Okay, here is... I have 2 levels. I've actually thought a lot about this, oddly enough. Something you know about me, and this is one of the funniest inconsistencies of my parents. My parents love humor. They love humor.
Yes.
I grew up with a lot of Naked Gun, Three Amigos, Airplane. My parents...
First of all, I want you to pause really quickly because when I got married, the day that I got married, my dad rented a TV/VCR combo. And he put one in David's bachelor room and one in the bridesmaids room. And he let us choose what movies would be playing as we got ready.
Oh, I love that.
David Radke chose Naked Gun and Melissa Radke chose The Three Amigos.
I might listen to me. Three Amigos. That if I have top 5 movies of all time, those 2 are in it. By the way, those 2 are in it.
But gosh,
maybe a line that I say more than any other line. It's from Nick. Where he goes, Drebin found some photos, and he goes, I was young and needed the money. He goes, no, the crime scene, Frank. I mean, I was young and needed the money. I probably use that line weekly. It's embarrassing. Anyway,
and I want to say that my line from Three Amigos that I say repeatedly, I don't even know if you can say anymore, but it's, we're not Mexicans. We're from out of town. I didn't know if we could say it.
I mean, it is those, what a golden age of comedy.
Okay, so keep going.
So but one of the inconsistencies, because, those were, Naked Gun. Now I'm like, how in the world will they let me watch that? But some of the jokes would just fly over you if you didn't get them. Mm-hmm. But Saturday Night Live, they were always okay with me watching that, basically. It was and so for me, a pillar of my childhood and, young adulthood was Saturday Night Live. I bet you I probably know 70% of the skits that were ever on that show of all time. Yeah. For that probably ending about 10 years ago. And even now I keep up with it. I still love it. So I think watching it, so me and a friend have downloaded a lot about this. That's why I've thought about this. Cause I was like, why am I so not emotional, but I just felt all of this feelings, instead of just laughing, I just felt it. And I think I had a few thoughts I'll go through quickly. One, I think it's crazy to think that Lorne Michaels has gathered basically all of the funniest people in America.
Yeah.
In that room.
Right.
Just his ability to curate those kind of people wanting to be there and kind of fighting for places is really amazing. I think if you ask me, there's really only been a couple of seasons, and I think they would say this, that were kind of flops. But to think that for 50 years he's been funny, it really made me think so much more about him, Lauren's ability to just always keep it on the rails. You know what I mean? And yeah, they've kind of had some, here's and there's, but mostly it's always been funny, some version of funny, right? I think the other thing I thought about, and these are the more heartfelt versions, this is still weird when you're talking about SNL, but...
Well, hold on, because do you think that Lorne Michaels himself is funny? A lot of times geniuses like that know funny, but it doesn't mean they are funny.
I don't know. I would imagine he is. He doesn't come off like he's funny, but...
He doesn't.
But that doesn't mean you don't know funny. You know what I mean? You know how to gather, or you know it when you see it.
I don't know that Lorne Michaels feels like he needs to be when his whole entire world is curated around Amy Poehler's and Will Ferrell's. And I mean, he doesn't probably need to be funny.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you're going to tell a story instead of Martin Short at dinner. Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
Like, just like eat your steak and smile, which is the name of my second book, oddly enough. No, and so I think I felt a lot of nostalgia. That really surprised me. Like, I felt this very like warm, sweet as I watched the show, because I was like, and I'm not saying that it wasn't dirty. Hear me clearly. But I think I just felt like, man, this is just such a known thing to me. Like, I watch it and I'm like, this is unbelievably familiar to me. So I think that was one. I think the other thing I thought about, and this is probably where I got maybe the most like sort of verklempt, you're welcome, is that it was like, when will you ever see Eddie Murphy and Will Ferrell do a skit together again? Or ever before? When will you ever see Mike Myers and Maya Rudolph do a skit again? When will you ever see, and I think, Tom Hanks and Eddie Murphy doing a skit together?
I know it.
I was just like, this is a real gift. And I think like that's so hokey and way too like,
not if you like entertainment like we do. Not if you like entertainment. I lived for that reunion. We backed it up. We rewound it. We fast forwarded. We went back to this again. I mean, and this is a testament to how funny I think Saturday Night Live is. When it was all over and it was so great, I still said, but where were the cheerleaders?
I know. There were like 500 skits that I was so mad. I thought about Wayne's World. I was like, why didn't they do it?
But when Mike Myers walked out,
oh my gosh,
as Coffee Talk, I thought I wanted to see him so bad. I was so happy to see him.
And I think too, he was so in character and so funny. Mm-hmm. Like, that's when you see a guy at that level come out and kind of steal the skit in a minute, you're like, well, that's why he's a GOAT. That's why he is. Yeah. But so I think for me, in conclusion, to end my TED Talk on SNL, I think, like, I'm a huge Beatles fan, and they put out a song last year that was like, they found an old song that John had written that gotten recorded but never put out. And so then they put their stuff over it. They found George playing a guitar part that worked with it. And it kind of felt like, me listening to that song, I got all emotional because I was like, gosh, this is like the last time we'll hear all their voices together in a new way on a new song. And I felt a little bit of that watching the show. I was like, I mean, a lot of these people are getting up there in age, and who knows if they'll perform or what'll happen in the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But I just felt like, man, this is and this sounds so cheesy, but I think it's true. It's a real gift to people who like comedy for them to put on a show where they go, hey, we're going to put all of the best people in all of the skits. And I mean, there were a million people that weren't in there. I was so mad Bill Hader wasn't there. It was Dan Aykroyd in there, or Dana Carvey. But like,
okay, why? That's why they couldn't do Wayne's World, because Dana Carvey wasn't there. Do we know why?
No, I have an article saved that somebody wrote, like, here's why all the people that weren't there. And
I saw the article title was why Bill Hader, why Dana Carvey, and why somebody else wasn't there. I'm hard pressed to think that there's like ill will with Dana Carvey. He's on there all the time as doing the cold open.
I know.
On any other
I don't know. I could see how people would. Yeah, I was thinking about this. I could see, this is one of my favorite phrases now, but like, I could see how people would get butthurt about this, but where it's like, they like, I saw a lot of people that I was like, man, I'm surprised they were okay with just doing that one line and walking off the stage in that one skit, because they were some heavies that were coming through and like bop bop, and then they were off. And I was like, I bet you they didn't like that email where it was like, hey, are you cool playing a rabbit in this skit and saying this line? When they're like, hold on now. Like, I was on the show for 9 years. You're not going to give me one of my classic skits. So, I don't know if that's it. I just know that when I watched it, I was like, man, I couldn't have really asked for a lot more. I thought it really, and especially as because they could have swung and missed on a lot of things.
A lot.
And I really felt like it was mostly funny. And some parts were like, I was, slapping my leg really,
were you slapping your leg on hot dogs and heroin? Because
that was the one that got a little, I was like,
agreed.
I'll take the trip with you. I don't know where this is going.
Kristen Wiig as the green M&M tried to save it for me a little bit there, but it just kind of went off the rails.
And they cut to David Spade, he's like, I got to feel for it. I was like, that was the best thing that happened maybe the whole night.
And here's what's so funny. Literally moments before I looked at David and I said, David Spade has not been on here yet, and my feelings are going to be hurt for him if he doesn't get to be on here. And the very next one he was, and then him sitting there going, I already got a feel for it.
It was just,
that was genius.
It was unbelievable. I mean, there were a couple. I mean, the Scared Straight, which was very lewd, but good gracious, it made me laugh. The Alien with Meryl Streep. That is one of my favorite things about Saturday Night Live. It really is. This is one of my favorite things about that show is when they get like a real actor on. And it happens about once a season, once every 2 seasons, where they get like a grade A actor on. And they go, I'm not going to read the cards. I'm actually going to play every character for every skit. And you get to see someone just kind of knock it out of the park and not a skit way. And kind of like, oh, you're like really this person for 3 minutes. And she did. Now she botched some lines because of that. But the performance to me was so good that I was like, I don't care if you mess the lines up. Just to see someone sit and do it so convincingly.
But in a situation like that, Kate McKinnon has already teed that up for you so stinking well. You get this back over to her and she's sitting there like this with that cigarette and the first part of her mouth is,
forget about it.
It didn't really go like that for me.
I mean, you know what I didn't understand? I was so mad they didn't let Ryan Gosling do that skit because everybody wanted to see him laugh.
He's so great in that. And he laughs every single time. And I love that.
And the guys were great. I mean, of course, those 2 guys are great. But I was just I was sort of bummed at how I was like, man, it just feels like the volley of all volleys. Because especially the last 10 years, that's a skit that people are like, that's a top 5 skit is when those 2 get together.
Hey, did you know that the Chicken Fried Women podcast is being brought to you by my new book, Chicken Fried Women, coming out April 22nd? I have a question for you. Have you pre-ordered it yet? Go to Amazon.com or wherever you buy books and order one for you and your bestie and your mom and your college roommate. You get what I'm saying. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
I think the other thing I talked to my buddy about for a long time, and we were kind of laughing, geeking on, is like, you really do realize, and this is such an obvious thing to say, but it reminded me of this. When you think of SNL, there really are there's archetypes of cast members, and you have to have them all. You have to have the like Will Forte weirdo who's always as left or right as you can be, pushing the edges of the weirdest skits, playing really amazingly weird and wonderful characters. You have to have like the Jason Sudeikis, who's the straight guy all the time. Every now and then he plays a character, but he's really the guy in the skit that's going to anchor it. Phil Hartman, these guys who, or girls who just like, here is the middle and I will stand here and let everybody run around me. And then I think too, you have like part players and they're great and they never kind of have them, but they're good. They do their job. And then you have like the GOATs. You have like, that's the thing I was telling my buddy, because I was like, I want you to send me your top 10 of all time. And he's like, well, what would qualify? And I was like, well, the closest I could get to qualifying that is like when these people came on the show, they literally shifted the show. Like the show bent to their humor because it was so enormous. Like their humor and talent was so big that the show is kind of like, we kind of can't not do what they're doing. Like I think about Kristen Wiig, Will Ferrell, Eddie Murphy. I
was going to say, when you told your friend, send me your top 10, are you talking about actors or are you talking about sketches?
No, no, like players. Yeah.
Okay. And so in your top 5 would be?
I mean, it'd be, to me, Kristen Wiig, Eddie Murphy maybe is the top. Will Ferrell would be maybe the top too. He'd be competing with that. I think, God, I'd have to think about the top 5. I mean, who would yours be?
Mine would be Kristen Wiig for sure. It would be Will Ferrell. I am.
Mike Myers would probably be in mine.
I was going to say, because of what he became after, as if Wayne's World wasn't enough, Mike Myers, the world discovered who he was. And he became I just think he's phenomenal. But I will say this, I want to say this about one cast member. I love this person, love their movies, but we saw a side of them the other night. If you don't love Adam Sandler, after what he stinking did with that guitar on that show,
how great
you do not know talent, because that was, how do you get people to laugh and cry and feel it all? And
it was incredible.
More?
It was incredible.
It was great.
I mean, he wouldn't be in my 10, he'd be in my 20. I just think like, it's funny to think about those people that sort of came through and left such a huge mark that when they left, it was like, man, it's going to be hard for everybody not to feel let down, because it was like they were just such a substantial thing.
Yeah. I think to round out the top 5, Steve Martin. I mean,
my gosh. I mean,
come on.
Yeah. I mean, and then you get into like the older, and I came up, again, like and of course everybody thinks this, but my sweet spot was Chris Farley.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Van down by the river.
But that was when I was coming up, was the Sandler, Farley, Spade, that era. And it was just, man alive. Was it funny? I mean, Tracy Morgan might be in my top 10.
Oh.
When that guy was in a skit, it was like, buckle up, just buckle up.
David and I have these shows, and they are our go-to shows at night when we crawl in bed and we're just winding down.
Yeah.
Okay? And they're shows like good old Frasier, right?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
We recently restarted 30 Rock.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm going to tell you what, that Tracy Morgan,
it's
she
bulletproof.
Just walks onto the set and I die laughing. Anyway.
I had a conversation with a guy once, and he knew Tracy. I was playing a show in New York, and me and a bunch of people went out to eat, and he was one of the guys. And he was a comedian. I don't know what's happened to him since, but he was kind of a big comedian at the time. We were hanging out, and Tracy came up, and he said, Dave, the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And he said, I've lived in New York, been a professional comedian my whole life. Tracy Morgan got up at this club once, and he said he shadow boxed for 25 minutes. And that was
he did not.
And I think about that every now and then, and I just think, like, that is just one of the most amazing things I've ever heard. Because, you would imagine sitting watching someone do that for that long. You would just go through so many, like, and just the commitment to be like, you're going to watch me do, but him doing it, like his body.
And you have to think, surely we're going to end here.
Yeah.
Now
and he's like, no.
It just keeps going.
That's like, it makes me think, did you ever see the Jimmy Fallon skit where he did the Bob Seger, take those old records off the shelf? Did you see the skit?
No.
He did the whole song where he sang those two lines, the whole song, but the new melodies. Take them down off the shelf. Now put those old records on the shelf and take them back off the shelf. Not put those old records on the shelf. I mean, it's that kind of commitment, though. Like,
right.
I'm doing this no matter what you think.
I am all in.
But I just think about Tracy Morgan shadow boxing for like even 15 minutes. I'm like, just what an incredible, like, I said, that's all he did. He's like, that is all that he did. Then he got off the stage.
It has to be the same way people are feeling about listening to this podcast. It's supposed to be about chicken fried women, but has in fact turned a corner and shadow boxed for the last 25.
Can I just say this? Maybe this is like a good way to land this plane. If you get a funny woman on Saturday Night Live, it's game over to me. I mean, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, like, I think there's something about really funny women that is so, it's almost got another depth because I think, honestly, women, different facets that a man does. And so it almost like, I just think it's funny in such a different way. And so when Kristen Wiig did the, I like and I touch, when she does the hands from Will Ferrell's mouth, I was like,
and I'm JD. And
I mean,
that a third hand.
It just, so, I do think there is something about really funny women on that show that when they land, it's game over. It's like they need to be in every skit. And, it's like you almost have to go back and look at Kristen Wiig's characters to realize how many stinking characters she did on that show. Yeah. Because I'd forgotten about, don't make me sing. Don't make me sing. I'd forgotten about her. Don't make me sing. But like and that wasn't even really like a hit skit. I mean, they reprised it a few times, but even that, like I watched one of those the other day and I was crying. But I think at the time it's overshadowed because then she does, either the little hand skit or she does, like
Californians.
What's it? Gilly. She would do that, so it's like there's so many of them that her funny ones that weren't that funny almost get overshadowed. But then you go watch those on their own, and you're like, this is just as funny as the other stuff. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I have absolutely loved this. And sadly, I don't know if it's sadly, talk about this for another 30, 45 minutes.
Me and you both.
Nonstop. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Listen, if you're listening to the Chicken Fried Women podcast, you knew what you was in for.
Yeah. This is your fault. This is not our fault.
And you knew when I had Dave Barnes on, that was going to be a cool mistake.
I mean,
and
that's
proven that you're right.
We have only done what they knew we would do.
That's exactly.
Okay.
Hey, you know that awkward part of any podcast that you're on where they go to say goodbye, but then you're like, do I hang up? Yeah. Am I supposed to sit here? I don't know. I'm just going to tell you I'm going to say goodbye and you could actually go. You don't have to say.
Thank you.
I am on podcast and I'm like, wait, does she mean bye? But I need to say.
Yeah. No, I know this life. I
got to tell y'all, there's some of y'all out there that are hosting some uncomfortable podcasts. So I'm just going to say, I have loved this. You are everything I told David Radke you would be. You feel like someone I went to college with, and I'm still very close to all those people. And because no one ever wanted to date me in high school, because again, built like the principal, and he was a great man. But I was always every guy's best buddy. And so I've always had a lot of male friends my whole life, and you just fit right in so beautifully.
I feel the same way.
I appreciate you being here so much.
Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for doing. I've almost called like my counselor and been like, can we talk about SNL? And he'd be like, Dave, this is a waste of time. I'm like, no, I need to exercise some thoughts.
Listen to me. You listen to me, and you listen good, young man. If you need me, you know where to find me. I'll discuss this anytime with you.
It's just funny. It's like, who saw that being? It really messed with me. Like we watched it in 2 chunks. And I was just like laying in the bed thinking I was like, why is this so profound to me?
Did you go and watch the 4-episode series on Peacock?
No, that's up next.
Huh?
That's up next. I'm going to do that.
Okay. Listen, that first episode is all of their 5-minute auditions.
Jeez.
It's wonderful. And then the fourth one is completely dedicated to the sketch cowbell. It's just cowbell the entire time. And they break it down of how it happened in dress rehearsal versus how. Did you know that Will Ferrell walked in right before they did it live? They had already done it at dress rehearsal and it went fine. But he went in for the live and he said, hey, you know that brown sweater that I'm wearing? That's my dog. You know that brown sweater that I'm wearing? Can I get it in 2 sizes smaller? And that's the reason why he had that small sweater on. Only Will Ferrell would even think of that.
Last story. I know you like stories. I saw an interview with him. It's going around, so you may have seen it too, because everybody's been doing all these SNL interviews where he's talking to, I think it's Fallon or maybe Jimmy. It doesn't matter. He's on some show and he's talking about how in college, when he was in college, his friends, they were all in college together. This is not like famous Will Ferrell. He said, I found I think he stole a janitor's outfit. And he's like, I would interrupt my friends.
We would go into the room, just into their room.
And say, there's no vomit. Nobody vomited.
This is not the class I'm supposed to be in right now.
Well, they told me somebody vomited. And the guy, whoever the host is like, so that was just to make 2 people laugh. He's like, absolutely. And I'm like, it's just glorious.
I have started, this is how weird I am. I've started following his son on.
No.
Magnus? Yes.
Magnus. Sweet Magnus.
And I don't know. I got to get a life, man.
All right, last thing, and then we can end this. Can you imagine what it would be like being the son or daughter of someone that's that funny?
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because Will Ferrell to me is different. I have a whole treatise on this. I won't bore you, but Will Ferrell's like funny. Like he's fun. He's not like get on stage and be funny or like Lauren Michaels funny. Like I just imagine anywhere you see him and you talk to him, you're probably going to giggle a little bit.
Did you see him as Buddy the Elf at the hockey game?
Yes.
So if your dad is willing to just do that on a Tuesday night.
Like what is that? I think about that. I'm like, what would it be like having a parent that's that funny? Like, Are you just like, I don't need to be funny at all because that space is taken? Or are you like, okay, let's go?
Magnus put up one the other day that just simply said, my emergency contact. And then they were in a hotel room and it's Will Ferrell just doing this dance in a hotel room and you just want to bust out laughing. But what's funnier is that actually is his emergency.
That is real. That's what I mean. That is real life for that guy. Like I think about Robin Williams' kids. I'm like, can you imagine what that would be like? Just someone that at any moment could be that funny.
Yeah.
I
have a feeling that's probably what our kids say about you and I.
I was going to loop it back to, so when I sit with my daughter and she's laughing at me, I think, what a gift you've been given.
I don't like to turn things back to myself, Dave, but yet here we are.
Let me do it for you. This
has been great. Yeah. I think I love you. And I can say that because Dave is right there.
He is.
He ain't worried.
Yeah. Okay, good.
He ain't worried. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. So fun to chat.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for being here today, where we get to talk about our friendships and our kinships and the stories that made us this way. Till next time.